Good evening. This is the Wednesday, April 2nd meeting of the Finance Committee. It's 7 o'clock. Our agenda tonight, call to order at 7. First off, is anyone recording out there in the audience? I don't believe so, so we're already off to a great start. We're gonna move our agenda around slightly. We're gonna vote on, we've got 4 or 5 transfers, and then we're going into a review of budgets. Starting with Bay Path, and we've got our senior executive representatives here from Bay Path. Then we'll be looking at the reserve fund, the law budget, emergency management, the Department of Public Service veterans, maturing debt, interest, pension and benefits, and the CIP, capital improvement budget. And then we're going to accept some minutes, and then we're going to adjourn. So pretty full slate on the agenda tonight. So first off, we've got Chief Coleman here. We've got a transfer of the fire department. Chief, if you can come up, please. This transfer request from the fire suppression accounts, amount requested $15,630 to the maintenance account. Chief, if you could fill us in on what's getting done.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. This transfer that's before you tonight is for the roof repair at Station 2 for the new rubber roof. Good job.
Excellent. So we've determined the root of the problem, et cetera, et cetera.
That is correct.
I know we've been talking about this a lot, so.
Yep, we do estimate that the roof is, we don't have the exact date, but it's about between 30 and 32 years old.
Yep.
The seams are weak, the rubber is worn. Excuse me, like I had mentioned the last time I was here, the DPW has inspected the attic space. There is no rot, there is no structural damage, so it is the rubber that needs to be replaced.
Good. Is this being outside contracted?
It is.
To be
I
done?
received 4 quotes. The low quote was $14,900, the high was $21,000.
Excellent. Thank you. I'll open it up to questions. Any questions? Ian? No. Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thanks for keeping up with the buildings.
Not a problem.
Excellent. Thank you. Our next transfer is, this is within the DPW. This is a Highway Department transfer. We've got, the rest of the transfers were all within the DPW. DPW Chief Bill Coyle's here. Bill, thanks for your time. Do appreciate it.
Evening.
First transfer I have in front of me, this is within the Highway Department, a transfer from the clerical account, a transfer of $800 with a present balance of $3,300 to equipment rental. And the reason for transfer is a payment each month for the copy machine and water cooler. I'll assume this didn't quite make it to the budget, or?
Well, in addition to that, there was additional equipment that we've had to rent during the past year for different construction activity that we don't currently own. So we took those funds out of equipment rental, and so we have a deficit of $800. So it was unanticipated rentals that we needed. So we currently need $800 to get us through the rest of the fiscal year.
Is this worked into the fiscal 15 budget?
Again, it was unanticipated. So I
Unanticipated.
don't expect that we would need that next year.
Okay. You gonna remember that? Someone here? Okay. Any questions on this? Do a motion?
Motion to approve? Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Our next transfer, also within the Highway Division, and also from clerical, the adjusted balance is approximately $2,500. Amount requested, $1,000 for electricity traffic lights. Reason for the transfer is due to numerous repairs on the town-owned traffic lights.
Yeah, several of the traffic signals on Millbrae Street, Swanson Road, traffic lights, the arrows go out, the loop detectors stop functioning. There was a significant amount of work that was needed to the traffic signal controller at the intersection of Vine Street and Swanson Road. So because of all that work, and obviously things that have to be done, so it was additional maintenance costs to our private contractor.
Do you consider that all normal wear and tear?
It is. I mean, the equipment is aging, unfortunately, so There's potential that there'll be more repairs needed. We are looking to potentially, over the next few years, replace the signals at Swanson Road and Auburn Street traffic light, but that's something that has to go through the process with Mass Highway. It could be a few years before that happens, so hopefully we're successful in obtaining funds through the state. But so that signal is aging, and unfortunately, it requires more maintenance.
Okay. Any questions? Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Our next transfer, also within the DPW Highway Division, also from clerical. This very likely would close the account out, or very close to it.
We leave about $500.
$500. Can't do math in my head. This would go to the license account. This transfer will cover new licensing regulations.
Yeah, this particular transfer, and I think the next one for the 600, are both for the same reason. The state has mandated new requirements for anyone who has a CDL license, or actually the 2A license, hoisting license. If you have additional licenses for operating a catch basin truck, tanker endorsements, each individual license that you have, similar to if you have professional licenses and you're required to have CEUs, they're now requiring this additional training, and the cost for each one of these licenses for each employee is $100 per, and they've only given us about 2 months lead time to get this done, so.
How long are the licenses good for?
Once they get them, I believe, I'd have to double check, but I believe it may be an annual requirement, so it's something we're gonna have to look at, adjusting our budget in the future for our licensing.
Seems like
It
a
is.
revenue-raising proposition.
It is in the union contract that we pay for their licenses.
Any questions on this transfer?
Motion to approve?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. And the last transfer, this is under DPW engineer. This is from the travel account. There's an $817 balance on that. Amount requested $600. This is to the license account. Bill, I'll assume this is
Same
taking care of
reason.
the need?
But just looking roughly, there's about 20 employees that require these licensing, so it's obviously going to be a cost to the town. So, but yeah, it's the same item.
Is that going to create an issue with the travel account, or is that something?
No,
that-
we do have additional funds available in travel. That's something that we can probably adjust in the future.
Okay.
I think we're using less mileage in that account I think that's through the engineer's account. So I think we can adjust that over time and lower that.
Okay. We have a motion from Kim. Thank you.
Question?
And a question.
How are we able to transfer so much from a clerical account, just over 3,000?
We had one of the employees was out on an injury for about 3 months, and she was on workman's comp.
Good question. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Bill, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bill, no more advances on the snow and ice. We're done, okay? It's April? Okay. Great. Excellent. We'll just do how about the brushes for the sweepers? That's about it, okay? Excellent. Thank you. Okay, we're going into the budgets. We've asked our representatives from Bay Path to come up here. John, Dean, good to see you, and our representatives are also here. I've asked John to give just a truncated, he has a presentation, I believe, that he normally provides on the operating budget. I asked him to give us a couple of highlights, and we would probably be focusing on the construction that's going on up there and events surrounding that. So, John, once again, good to have you here. Thank you.
Well, thank you for inviting us, and as you mentioned, both of the school committee members from Auburn are here, Mr. Heroyan and Mr. Erickson, and Mr. Yakabuchi, the very capable business manager. We're not going to go over the formula as we normally do, but we certainly could answer questions if there were questions. So I'll go through some of the highlights of the budget. Our budget was sent to you on February 13th, and the total budget for fiscal 2015 is $19,230,987. That is the minimum budget allowed by law. It includes a total debt assessment on the new facility of $1,030,348. If you pull out that debt service, the operational budget itself reflects a 2.7% increase over last year. Member assessments for the 10 towns total $8,821,267, and we're expecting net Chapter 70 revenue of $682,501. The good news is that the local aid resolution that was passed about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago by the state, includes the same formula that was put out by the governor. So if you recall, last year there were some changes in the assessments in June once the final budget came through. And because we're a minimum assessment district, all 10 towns had changes. Some went up, some went down. It's our expectation that the assessments will not go up from here because of that local aid resolution. The budget is also built on $727,219 of Chapter 71 busing aid. We're still receiving $63,910 in capital buy-in from the 3 new towns. They'll have 3 payments left. And as we mentioned from time to time, year after year, last year we missed the net school spending requirement by $470,644. And the question comes, well, how do we do that? Well, again, because the budgets that we put forth every year at this time are minimum budgets required by Chapter 70, anytime we don't spend the budget fully, that's going to cause us to miss net school spending. In addition, from time to time, we're required to transfer funds from a net school spending category to a non-net school spending category. We don't do that often, but on occasion we've had to. That would also reduce our net school spending number. So I suspect that before the end of the year, we may go to the school committee and ask them for an appropriation of some E&D towards a net school spending category, because the law is very clear. If we were to miss net school spending by more than 5%, and in this current year, that would be somewhere in the vicinity of $800,000, the state will then reduce our Chapter 70 aid, but they will not reduce the required spending, which means that we would then get into a situation where assessments would need to go up to cover the loss in Chapter 70 and then try and get this down. So we're watching it carefully. We think we will be okay, but it is something that's difficult to manage on a minimum budget. As far as the debt service, just so you know, we issued a second bond on January 30th of 2014 in the amount of $9.3 million. The first bond was in 2012 at $9.1 million. The interest rate for 30 years was 3.84%. We were pleased to get an upgrade from an A+ to an AA- rating from Standard & Poor's from the school. And because these are state aid intercept bonds, they're rated at a AA. So you have 2 ratings. You have the district's rating, which is AA-, up 1 step. And the bond in particular has its own rating because the state, we're actually paying this bond out of Chapter 70. They take that money directly. We did receive, this last bond bid period, we received $200,332.78 in bond premium. And as a region, we're required to return that bond premium to the 10 towns. So Auburn will be receiving a check, and I think that's going to go out in April, for $26,443.93. The debt in Auburn is not exempted, so therefore that becomes money for the general fund as opposed to being earmarked for reducing the cost of the bond. In the 7 towns that pass debt exclusions, they need to set up a reserve and earmark that so that the taxpayer gets the direct benefit of that particular amount. We've included a chart showing how the debt service is allocated. As I said, this year will be $1,030,000. Auburn, due to its capital population of 2,567 K through 12 students, as of January 1st, 2012, pays 13.2% of the bond costs. At this point, Auburn is second only to Southbridge in the number of students that reside within the district. Those are students that go to private school, public school, all of them. Student population at Bay Path. The population remained exactly the same last year to this year. We had 83 students. But I think it's instructive to give Eddie in particular and the Finance Committee as well a heads up that we'll be graduating 18 seniors from Auburn this year. We've received 49 applications for seats next year, and we have an allocation of 42 seats. So it's likely we will end up, we've accepted 42 students already. Some of those students make a choice not to attend. They either tell us or they just don't show up in September. But I would suspect that of the 49 applicants, we'll end up with about 40 students, which would give you a total of about 105 next year at this time. Okay? We've also included a detailed breakout of your member assessments. And at this point, I think you've probably been through with your own finance people what the governor's budget looks like. And the rest of that PowerPoint was the school funding formula in detail showing how we arrived at the minimum contribution for the town of Auburn. So at this point, I'll switch over briefly to the progress on the addition renovation project. As you may recall, we broke ground in late summer on the project. We hired Consigli Construction. They're the general contractor. All of the subcontract work has been bid out. And at the end of the day, when all of the bidding was awarded at the end of September, beginning of October, the bids came in approximately $900,000 below budget. It is our expectation that we will keep this project on or below budget throughout its entirety. We have, at this point, put up all of the steel for the new 50,000 square foot additions. There's a large one right up at the top of the hill. When you come up the top of the hill, it's being enclosed as we speak. The second floor has been poured, the cement has been poured, and all of the utilities are being brought in through there. And the first floor, we're doing some trenching. My understanding is on Friday they'll be pouring the concrete for that floor. At the same time, on second shift, the backbone, the MEP, the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, has been brought throughout the current building to the entrance of the new building. If you know Bay Path at all, our water system is run by wells. Those wells are located in the back of the building, and all of the utilities for the water come in through that back of the building. So they've had to, and we're also going to be a fully fire protection sprinklered building, both the old and the new. So all of that piping and the electricity and so forth is being put into the old building now, and we are on target to complete the 50,000 square foot addition and open that on August 21st of this year. Once that work is done, over the summer, in addition to finishing off that 50,000 square foot addition, they will be renovating 9 of the current shops. We have 21. 9 of them will be renovated over the summer. Starting actually a little early at the end of April vacation this year, 2 of our interior classrooms will be undergoing renovation as well. That will serve also as a kind of a test case for how the rest of the renovations will go. So right now things are on schedule. We've had a few issues that we've had to deal with. For example, some asbestos that we thought we were going to be able to remove from the outside of the building. We actually had to board in the inside of the building, so a couple of classrooms moved for 2 weeks while we were doing that. But in general, we've been very satisfied with the work of the construction company. In fact, we're pleased to say that our building superintendent from Consigli is an Auburn resident, John LaPearl. If any of you know Mr. LaPearl, he is tremendous. He's keeping this project going, and it's a very, very complex project. With that, I'm certainly able to answer any questions you might have on either of those 2 topics. But we are pretty excited, and things are moving along well.
Actually, while you're filling us in, just a quick update on the Charlton Southbridge water issue.
Yes, that's a good idea. We had hoped that during the winter, we got together with a lot of folks, got together, some of the state officials from Charlton, Southbridge, the DEP, and of course Bay Path. We had a couple of meetings up at Bay Path. Those then broke off, and we put together all of the engineers because there are some engineering issues relative to the number of users that would be on a loop that would be constructed that would go by the school. Currently, there is some water in downtown Charlton, but there aren't enough users to keep that water flowing and keeping it fresh and clean and safe. So, for example, the town of Southbridge blows off quite a bit of water every day down in an embankment in the middle of Charlton. Unfortunately, at this point in time, those meetings have not produced what we consider an agreement that's imminent. I have been informed that apparently in the state budget, there is a $6 million appropriation in the environmental bond bill that would, in theory, allow Charlton to develop its own water system if they can't come to an agreement with the town of Southbridge. What that means for us is originally on Valentine's Day, we were going to order our 20,000-gallon water tank if there were no agreement in place. In the meantime, our engineers working with our water operator, we have a private water operator required of us because we're a public water supplier, have come up with a way to engineer. The main issue that we have to deal with right now is backflow prevention. The potable water system and the fire protection system currently are all on one line coming in from our 100,000-gallon tank. And for years, the state has been saying you need to do something about backflow prevention. Unfortunately, the size of the system and the size of the building did not allow for backflow prevention. The engineers, because we would be changing out that system anyway in the new, in the construction, we're going to be able to put in the new potable pumps, put backflow prevention temporarily on that system, and the DEP has given us another year to operate the way we are. So if the two towns, or if Charlton themselves can come up with a solution and get a pipe up there before the end of the summer of 2015, there's still a chance we would tie in. I won't say the chance is likely, but there is a chance. If that doesn't happen, we are prepared to put in the 20,000-gallon potable water tank, and we will also, although not mandated by law of DEP, we will also be putting in what's called an MTBE filter. Right now, we filter our water for arsenic because the arsenic is above the levels required by DEP. We have about 4 parts per billion of MTBE in the water, which is well below the standard. However, there is a plume in Charlton that was due to an Exxon situation, and there is no telling over the long haul if that plume will come closer to us. So while we're in the process of upgrading the system, if we're required to put that tank in, we'll also spend about $50,000 to filter out that MTBE because I don't want any in there. And if that were to get worse, we would have to do it anyway. So you know how it is. It's always a little more fiscally prudent to do it while you've got the system open than go back in a year or 2 or 3 years. So that's about where we stand. We certainly stand ready, the committee stands ready to work with anybody who's able to get this situation moved forward, but we will be ready to go if there is no solution locally.
And if that does occur, will the scope of, say, putting in a new water tank and the MTBE filter system, is that within the scope of really what the town's agreed to in terms of the expansion renovation, so funds can be used from the, really the debt exclusion?
Well, first of all, as you may have heard from your own project, and I don't know the specifics of your own project, the MSBA will only participate in up to 8% of the total project cost for grounds and utilities and so forth, and they won't participate in water and sewer, external water and sewer. They'll pay for the plumbing on the inside, not the outside. So when the project was presented to you, number one, we had funds in the project, and number two, we knew they wouldn't be reimbursable. Okay, so the answer to your question is yes. That's within that $900,000 worth of savings, so it's not something we're going to say, we need part of that $900,000. We've set up a reserve for it. What we would do, and that's another good question. It is our intention that any of the savings, if it goes above $900,000, it may, if we continue on this path of not having too many big problems, we do not intend to borrow the full 27.3 million unless we absolutely need it. Now, common sense tells me we're not going to need that 900,000, so we're looking at probably 26.4 million. So just because we have the authority to go to 73.8, if we can avoid going to 73.8, we will. Because any money we borrow that does not get spent on this project because, the budget is below, the only use for that money, quite frankly, is to keep it up at Bay Path and use it for some other capital purpose. And that's not been our style, as you know. If we had a capital purpose, we would come to the towns and say, this is it. So it is likely that next January, we may do some short-term borrowing. So that way, we're not committed to the 27.3 million in advance of knowing whether we need it all. The more complex part of this project, as you can imagine, is renovating the current 200,000 square foot facility. And we'll be about halfway through that in January. So, Mr. Iacobucci and I have already spoken about this, and we've worked with our treasurer, and we know that we're not going to commit ourselves to more money than we need in an effort to be a little conservative for all of our 10 towns.
So the dome over the football stadium is just a rumor?
That's right. But
I heard that yesterday. I was
The
just,
lights at the football stadium are not a rumor. Those were in the budget,
Right.
and we also received $100,000 worth of donations towards that. So for the last 4 or 5 years, we've been accepting donations. We have almost $100,000. So you will see lights, but that was already planned.
excellent. Thank you. I'm going to open up the questions now and keep my mouth shut. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions. I just noticed that the capital population for the town, it says, according to this document, 2,567 students. That includes through kindergarten, correct?
K to 12.
Now, what if, I know this, but I know the answer, but not all the towns have full-time kindergarten kids,
It's not based on whether they go to kindergarten. It's based on their age.
right? So it's not based on,
No, they have to, each school district has to report this to the Department of Education. These numbers come right off the Department of Education forms that the school districts must file.
and another question in regards to the original, I guess I don't know the answer, the original contract, the original agreement within towns. Does the Chapter 70 funding formula determine Auburn's net minimum contribution, or is it based on the original agreement by the towns?
It's
What,
yep.
I know, what's the
In
difference?
1993,
I know all about this.
the Commonwealth was sued by a student
Yep.
claiming disparate education. That is the year that the Chapter 70 formula superseded your district agreement.
Okay, so it superseded it. So
Absolutely.
all right, so that's,
So all of these numbers are based on current Massachusetts law that we're required to follow. In some communities, particularly regional towns, regional school districts, not single, if all members of the community, if all members of the region voted to go on a proportional method, they could do that, but it had to be unanimous. And so obviously with 10 towns, those towns that benefit, per se, from the formula would not agree to that. Those towns that are paying more per student would like to see that. But unfortunately, that won't happen in our district with 10 towns. And so Chapter 70 is the law of the land that we have to follow.
great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Question?
Yeah.
What sewer system is Bay Path connected to?
We are connected to the Charlton sewer system back in 2002. We used to have our own sewer treatment plant. It always fell out of compliance with DEP. And in 2002, it was determined the cost to upgrade it would be between $600,000 and $100,000 and $1 million. And you had to have a certified sewer treatment plant operator. So we received, and at that time it was SBAB grant, and we built a sewer line from the top of that hill all the way down to Old Worcester Road into Charlton Sewer Treatment Plant. And
Excuse, does Charlton have its own sewer treatment plant?
yes, yeah. And we pay a betterment for 20 years, $30,000 a year. There was extra money that came from the SBAB grant. We set that up, we set that aside, so right now we haven't had to assess that 30,000. When that fund is depleted in maybe, what, Dean, 2 or 3 years? 2 or 3 years, yeah. There'll be an assessment for that 30,000 to get us through the 20 years, so that probably go to, I'm guessing 2022, 2023, something like that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ed, did you?
Yeah, a couple of
Sure,
questions.
feel free.
John, is the net debt 27.3 million? Is that?
At the end of the day, it
And-
will be. Right now, it's
Net of
18
MSBA, right?
Yes.
27.
It'll be 18.4 right now, Ed. In January of 2014, we'll issue the last slug of it. But
Okay.
as I said, we're probably going to do some temporary until we find out exactly how much we need.
Okay, when you prepared your estimates or your model, when you made a presentation before the Finance Committee, Board of Selectmen, and School Committee.
Yeah.
The estimated rate on the long-term bonds, how does that compare to what you're actually seeing?
The first one last year was significantly below. This one this year was slightly above.
Okay,
But, and we asked the same question of our financial advisor. I said, now look, we went to all the towns, we gave him a model. He helped us develop that model. As long, Ed, as the rate comes in at less than 10.48% next year, our overall modeling will be below what we gave you. Because I was concerned about that as well.
I'm glad to hear that, very good. And one other question, I think you mentioned that for the upcoming year, you have, was it 45 or 49 applications?
We have 49 applications, and because of that allocation of K to 12, Auburn is entitled to 42 seats.
Okay. Why the major influx over, any idea? Because I'm looking at the school enrollment numbers for grade 8, and it seems to be like a 22 student increase from prior year.
Right.
Is
You mean
that,
locally?
huh?
You mean locally at 22?
Yeah. What is Auburn's, I mean, 49 is high. I
Yeah,
take
you
it.
have actually, 49 is high, and from a historical point of view, however, interestingly enough, in 2005, 2006, Auburn's total population of students at Bay Path was 107. If, in fact, we award 42 seats, or I shouldn't say if we award, if 42 of those students come, you'll be back at 107, which is the high water mark. First of all, although it's not a satisfying answer, it is very cyclical. If you look, I'm holding a chart here from 1990 on, there are ups and downs. Number two, one of the big, what year did you open your high school? Do you remember?
06.
06?
Yeah.
Okay, so that doesn't, you started trending down a little bit after '06.
Are you
But-
seeing that trend for other communities, or is this,
And actually, yes, it's very normally, I'll tell you, at one point, we had 365 kids from the town of Southbridge. Now, obviously, their allotment isn't 365 kids, but that was because a good number of our towns did not fill up their allocation. This year, only the towns of Paxton and Rutland will not be using their allocation. So I don't have a sense as to what's driving that,
Yeah.
but it is 8 out of 10 towns we've seen. For example, Southbridge, we have 101 this year, applications. Oxford, 77. But I mean, it's across the board
Okay.
that it's evened out. So I don't know. We're very happy about it, and we think that, you know, kids get an opportunity there that is second to none.
great, thank you.
All set, Ed?
Yep.
Good. Any other questions? Ed, did you have a question?
Not sure if this question's for Ed, but On your debt service, the bond interest rate, 3.84?
Yeah.
Does that seem on the high side compared to what the town of Auburn would get?
It's a 30-year
Oh, it's a-
bond.
Yeah, they're out for 30-year. We just went for a 10-year on a refunding bond issue. We got a net 1.9. So, and it all depends. It all depends at what point you go to market. It all depends the term and in the rating as well.
And the other issue that you don't face is that, quite frankly, when we do our OS, our official statement, a lot of people who buy the bonds will look at all 10 towns and their ratings. And there are a couple of towns that have some significant issues, so they're not highly rated. Now, what is your rate, Ed? You must be a double A?
Double A plus.
Yeah. So you have probably the highest, I would think that's the highest rate of our 10 towns. So you're naturally going to get a much lower rate, and of course, 10 years versus 30. But 3.84, quite frankly, is not that bad for 30-year debt. And again, I think the key thing is when we explain to the, I think we went to the Board of Selectmen, I'm not sure we came here. We did speak to you one time before. All of our modeling was higher than this. When we get to the third year, you'll see that, and I'll have our person next year at this time give us an exact comparison. But you'll see that it did come in overall lower than what we told the committees.
Okay. Good.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, then we're all set with the presentation. What I will do while you're here anyways is we need to take a vote on their operating budget. And once again, this is kind of unique where really we don't have an opportunity necessarily to make an adjustment to this budget unless the state tells us to, so that's unusual for our budgets here at this point in time on April 2nd or 3rd.
Has it in the past been fluctuated? I mean, have we ever changed this number in the fall town meeting?
Yeah, when the state tells us to, which happens most years. Minor adjustments, right?
Yeah, minor.
Yeah, we're dictated to.
Prior to 1993, you had the option to do that. But after Chapter 70 was amended in 93, the state tells, there are districts that go above minimum. We've not gone above minimum since 2000. We understand what you're up against. We're able to run the school at minimum. But if you do not approve minimum, the logical conclusion of that is the state has the ability to hold up your Chapter 70.
As far as logical goes.
Well, that may not have been the right word.
We've got a lot of words for that, John, but that's in the past, you know. What we have in front of us, though, is we'll call it a town manager recommended budget, if I'm looking at this correctly, of $983,662. The fiscal 14 appropriation was $923,849. This is a 6.47% increase, which also includes debt for the school upgrades. Excluding that assessment, the increase is actually 2.76%. Do you have a motion or any other questions?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. John, Dean, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thanks for coming, I appreciate it.
Help out in any way, don't hesitate to
Appreciate
call.
that, John, and I've got your number, and I have no problem giving it to my committee members here. All right, good to see you.
Bye, Dean. Thanks.
Good luck with the
Thanks, John.
project.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, good to see you, thanks for coming
See you
up.
at town meeting.
Looking forward to it. Okay, let's move on. Our next budget to review is the reserve fund. I can't find it. Here it is.
There it is, number 132.
There we go. The recommended budget in the reserve fund, which includes the reserve fund and salary wage reserve, is $190,000. This compares to a fiscal 14 appropriation of $380,000. The reduction in this is very simply, we had reserved for a significant number of union contracts that had come up and have since been satisfied. We are actually flat funding the reserve fund and reducing the salary wage reserve from $230,000 to $40,000. Ed, any just real quick strategy on where we have these numbers?
This is the level of funding that we've made a recommendation on outside of 14. This is the norm. I can tell you the $40,000 under the salary and wage reserve is primarily for any consideration for bylaw employees, non-represented. All of our contracts are settled. All of those wages have been addressed within each department's budget, except for the bylaw personnel. The reserve fund is level funded. I would like to say that we would consider a increase in the reserve account in accordance with our financial policies. We had set a benchmark of roughly 0.5% of our total operating budget. That would be somewhere in the vicinity of about $250,000 total reserve. We'd like to get there over a period of time. Quite honestly, that takes pressure off those items that require some additional funding during the course of the year, that be snow and ice, which we try to address through the operational side of the budget. So we do have this as a priority, I think $25,000 that we will revisit if and when things change, with a potential amendment at the fall town meeting.
Okay, any questions on this?
Motion to recommend? Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, so voted. That was for $190,000, town manager request. Our next budget is the law budget. Town manager recommends $120,000, including $70,000 for general counsel, $40,000 for negotiator, and $10,000 for special litigation. This is actually down $15,000 from the fiscal 14 appropriation. Any questions or any comments on this? Kim?
Eddie, where are we right now on our, you know?
Negotiator, which would be Labor Council, we have expended to date $21,761. So roughly a little less than 50%. We're well beyond halfway through the fiscal year. We're doing very well there. And General Counsel, we've expended roughly $47,000 out of $75,000.
Thank you.
So hopefully we can live within those amounts without requesting a transfer, provided nothing else should flare up.
I'll assume we haven't used any of the special litigation
We have not expended,
at this point? Okay, just truth and transparency, or whatever that word is. Any other questions? Ian?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, so voted. Thank you. Our next budget is emergency management, budget 291. Amount requested by town manager for emergency management is $10,000. The department request, which I'm sure will get explained to, was slightly higher at $14,330, but we are flat funding against fiscal 14. Ed, just any brief highlights on this?
yeah, I think the director had recommended a increase in the wage account that would reflect basically a change in duties and responsibilities that would make him more of a part-time director instead of a stipend on an on-call basis. A lot of training involved, a lot of education involved that would benefit the town, enhance our capabilities. But we're going to try to initially address that through some grant funding if we can. And if that, I believe there is a grant that is being prepared that would allow for some additional support. If in fact that grant does not get approved or maybe is awarded something less than what has been requested, then we may be back at a later date to try to make some adjustments to this budget.
Okay,
But for the most part, it's level funded.
okay. Any questions? Motion?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Our next budget is the Department of Public Services Veterans. Was Larry going to make it up tonight, or? He won't be here? And, okay. And that's 541.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is a level-funded budget, except for the fact for relief and medical, which we reduced based upon the active claims that we're currently paying. As you are aware and are well-known, we've brought in transfers in the past if in fact there are fluctuations in the claims. It seems to have leveled off, but one never knows. So we're going with the best information we have at this time. It could come in less than 63, it could come in more than 63. This is almost like a motor vehicle fuel account. You just don't know which way things are going
Depends
to...
on the economy.
Yeah.
Right.
But based upon the information we have prepared this budget and projected out based on last 3 months' worth of claims.
Okay, and that budget number, if I'm reading it correctly, is $790,651?
76,914. The
I'm sorry,
790 is
yes.
for...
Thank you. Sorry, I'm wearing my glasses. $76,914. The fiscal 14 appropriation was $81,496. Any questions? Motion?
Motion to recommend, second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Our next budget is maturing debt. And we have a town manager recommendation of $2,845,662, which is down nearly $250,000 from the fiscal 14 appropriation of $309,238. Ed, any highlights with this budget?
I just want to check one thing. Okay. This does reflect the recent refunding bond issue. That's under 591220. You're going to see a significant reduction on the interest side, but the debt payment is basically level because we borrowed $10,735,000 out of a refunding bond issue of 11,040. We applied some of a reserve against that to pay off some of that debt. So this is current, and it reflects, like I said, the most recent bond issue that we had brought to you with the rating review that we received a few weeks ago.
Okay. Just a question, are any of these ongoing repayments here coming off in the next year or two?
Mr. Chairman,
Just as a point of
we passed that
information.
out, didn't we?
Yeah,
All right.
I didn't have a
There is
chance
a
to
revised
pull it
debt schedule.
together.
You can see the level of debt. In 16 actually goes up. 17, we start to retire some in 18 and 19.
Okay. So we'll be living with these levels for the next few years. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Any questions on this? Once again, a $2.845 million request.
Motion to approve. Second?
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Our next budget is interest. Town manager recommendation on interest is $785,100, which is down just under $240,000 from fiscal 14's appropriation. Any questions on this?
Motion to recommend.
Kim, question?
Just quick, Ed, is that mostly due to the
The refunding bond issue. I think we identified roughly $298,000 worth of annual savings. But if you look at the last line, the bands, there's an increase of 105, and that is for the 10 million we just went out and borrowed for the middle school. That portion of that band is going to be raised outside the levy limit because of the debt exclusion vote.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Thank you, Kim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Our next budget is pension and benefits. Town manager recommends pension and benefit budget of $8,507,945, which is a just over almost $303,000 increase over fiscal 14's appropriation, or an increase of 3.69%. Ed, any highlights on this?
There is a 6-month savings, I think I indicated this to the committee a few meetings ago, as a result of the healthcare reform. We had another $284,000 of savings over current fiscal year. But to that, we had roughly a 4.5% increase in our rate renewal. In addition to that, we provided for 10 additional new employees as presented by the school department in their budget. We made an allowance for that, and right now we're estimating the number of committed individuals that are going to retire is 16 on both town and school, majority at the school, and we built in an allowance for an additional 2 for those who may not have committed yet. Those assumptions were made as part of the calculation, leading to a projection of roughly $6,025,000.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Question?
Yep.
I have a question about the OPEB study. We, in the past, have we put that through in a article?
I believe we have done it through an article in the past.
All right, and the healthcare audit, is that not going to be an annual event?
Healthcare audit is done every 2 years as well. That's part of the Healthcare Reform Act. We're required to do a study on on eligibility.
So it looks like they alternate.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And it does make sense to put it in here. We know it's going to
Yeah.
happen. That's a great point. Any other questions? Is there a motion on this?
So move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So voted. Okay, our last budget is actually the CIP. And I will just open that up to any questions or comments on the CIP. However, I would like, just in terms of, not presentation, but how we see it, I believe you've broken down for us what part where we end up basically going out to bond, what part's covered. Is that possible to do an estimate on that, not just in the current year, but in the out years, on what our expectations are for how we're financing CIP or?
Well, as you can see, last year we borrowed 1.5 million and change. We're roughly down 100,000, 1.4.
Yeah.
And I think the best explanation for that is that's because of the earmark that we have through the tax levy that we're now applying towards a direct purchase for our capital. That becomes part of the plan. And our level of need, if you look at the 5-year plan going out, the total capital for FY15 is 2.7 million. In 16, it's 2.2. In 17, it's 1.8, 1.9 in 18, 1.6 in 19. Now, a lot of this debt need is going away because of the capital investment we made in the high school and that we're making in the middle school, and part of the 1.8 that is being, well, 1.6 that is going to be amended at the annual town meeting to help rehab the existing middle school. That's good news because the need for bond proceeds is going to significantly diminish because the level of need is going down. At the same time, we're applying a portion of the tax levy on an annual basis.
Right.
What those specific amounts are is really not known until we have budget discussions, deliberations. We recognize what our lease obligations are that that are going to happen after the FY15 gets approved. So it is sort of a moving target, but I think if you look at the macro plan, things should be moving down in terms of need to borrow.
Good. Making the credit card go down is a good thing. That's good. Any other comments on this? All right, I guess our current, yeah, Kim, go ahead. Sure.
Ed, how does the school department's capital for 15, the building rehab fit with what they have that they want to transfer?
All that they want to transfer to meet that 1.6 is prior to FY15.
Right.
So they submitted warrant articles that are going to amend FY 11, 12, 13, and 14. And it's a combination of amendments that's going to free up 1.6 or repurpose 1.6
Okay.
to do what they need to do with the middle school.
But in this FY15, they've got another $500,000 for middle school, existing middle school rehab. They've got $30,000 for JB. They've got $20,000 for Mary D.
Right. I think the 30 for MD, Mary D. and JB is the removal of the underground
Thanks.
storage tanks.
I thought that was in
JV.
the old money that they were saving.
No.
In fact, they pulled that out because they know that's, regardless of whether that's going to be a school or a piece of farmland, that's got to get taken care of.
I think
Those
they actually
pieces.
commented on that when they made their presentation. Was that a few weeks ago? Last week?
Yeah.
Well, Kim, what I can tell you is when we sat down, we revisited the five-year plan, and they made some amendments within the plan to restructure that because
Okay.
of the overall plan with the, not only the new school, but the rehab as well.
Okay, Kim?
And we won't be borrowing money for this stuff until they're sure they need it, right?
Oh, what, for 15? Well, I can tell you that a statement that we send out will ask for the need, so we'll make sure that, and with every department, we're going to make it clear that whatever the need is, it's, because we only want to provide on a cash
Right.
flow basis what the immediate need is. And so we'll have a department heads meeting and discuss that and make it clear. Because we don't want to
Yep.
borrow money and pay interest on something that is just going to sit in the bank.
All set? Chris?
Just thinking long-term here, do we need to do anything? When and if these buildings become, whatever the process, when if they become
Surplus.
surplus, right? Would the town need to do anything to maintain them? Would the town need to put in some CIP money to maintain them, to figure out something to do with them? I'm just thinking, 2019 here.
And that's a good question that has been asked on several different occasions. I think that's being discussed by the a school buildings committee or?
There's a capital needs plan.
Yeah, there will be some costs associated with maintaining those buildings, even though they are vacant. Still have to heat them to a certain extent, monitor them, and maintain them. It's still an asset of the town. We can't neglect them. We can't ignore it. So the proceeds that are derived from a sale of that building most likely would be set aside to offset any costs associated with debt and interest or any borrowing cost.
Hence our reason to kind of try to push forward very quickly, or as quickly as possible, to come to some decision on what we're doing with those buildings, either repurposing them or selling them outright, and getting that process in gear, which ultimately really falls on the town manager to make sure that that process moves along. On the plus side, the town manager has been in that situation before as assistant manager in Worcester. So we do have some experience in moving that. I mean, when's the last time we took a building offline was it Randall School? Might have been,
And it never really came off.
Yeah, I mean, it
because
stayed-
became
exactly.
Yeah.
So you could go back to either
administration.
Stoneville or Boy Street School, or, long, long time ago. But I think part of our responsibility here would be to make sure that town administration and school administration and our other subcommittees looking at capital plans moving forward, stay on them to make sure that whatever plans we're going to take, we're going to make decisions soon, so we're not wasting a lot of money upkeeping vacant buildings. Enough for that public service announcement. So, we've got a CIP in front of us. The current year is 2.715796 million. Do we have a motion on the whole CIP plan?
Motion to recommend.
Do a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Great, thank you all. It's a lot of hard work. I believe, Sharon, we've got through all the budgets now, correct? Excellent. I had asked Eddie before, we really don't have any kind of updates from Beacon Hill that would make any kind of movements in the budget right now, necessary or not. Our next reason to meet, and I know we still have to accept minutes of a couple of things, would be to discuss the town meeting warrant, correct? There you go.
Mr. Chairman, one quick update. I'm just passing around a updated report based upon your action tonight. I made an assumption if everything got approved as presented, which it has. It gives you an updated, unobligated, or excess balance of $30,215.04.
Okay, great.
So, at one point, we were at 2,000 as a result of some savings because of the refunding issue, as well as an estimate we used on the ban, and now we had an actual on that. It increased our savings by about $28,000. So this is something that can be reconsidered at a later date. We're not prepared to make any recommendation at this point in time based upon the list of priorities. I think our position would be sit and wait, and do that once some hard numbers are known by way of state aid and local receipts at the close of the fiscal year.
Okay, and from my understanding, as far as we know, the town meeting warrant articles are a lot of the usual stuff that we either deal with or defer to while petitioners on. The CIP transfers within the school are all netting out. There'll be some more cemetery transfers, which we always deal with, and also the Medicaid transfer, or request, which is a normal request. But in discussion with Sharon, I don't think there were any significant outliers for requests unofficially.
There are some requests that ask for a sum of money, which would utilize a portion of this 30 if recommended, or if town meeting should approve it, so something to keep in mind.
Okay, Good to know. Chris, you had a question?
No, just, you answered it. Yeah,
Okay.
just answered it.
Okay, that's great. And, let's see, so the warrant is closed. Board of Selectmen haven't looked at that yet, correct, Doreen? Excellent. So it's a matter of just kind of coordinating subsequent meeting to when that gets looked at. So I don't think we need to meet next week then, do we? And we can hold off any transfer. It doesn't look like there's anything exciting on that, so it's nice to get the second Wednesday in April off, which is great, which is a testament to a lot of hard work here. I do appreciate everyone's efforts. That being it, I know we have some minutes from February of 13. Were there any comments, corrections on that? That's fine. And I think that's it for the agenda. So, that being the case, then, we won't meet until at least 2 weeks from now, or can we plan it?
16th, you would meet that week.
All right.
Because the following week it would be sent to the printer.
Okay, that's great. All right, all that being done with, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you.